9 Hollywood stars who have quietly retired. There's a unique sadness in a farewell never spoken. While some Hollywood legends take their final bow with press conferences and tearful goodbyes, others simply disappear. No announcement, no farewell tour. One day, they're on magazine covers and theater marquees. The next, they're gone, vanished into private lives, away from Hollywood's relentless spotlight. The industry has always had an unwritten rule that you never admit you're done, explained a veteran casting director who has watched countless careers rise and fall. Saying I'm retiring is like admitting death in Hollywood. So instead, many stars just quietly stop returning calls until the town finally gets the message. These 9 remarkable talents didn't fade away from scandal or lack of opportunity. They walked away at the height of their powers. Oscar winners, box office champions, cultural icons who decided that stardom's rewards no longer outweighed its costs. What makes these departures fascinating is the deliberate choice, observed a longtime Hollywood agent. These aren't cases of the phone stopping ringing. These are stars who looked at endless opportunities, unlimited wealth, and global adoration and said, "No thank you, I've had enough." Their silent exits leave behind fascinating questions. What makes someone walk away from the dream millions desperately chase? What happens when the applause stops by choice rather than circumstance? And perhaps most intriguing, are they truly at peace with their decisions? Or do they sometimes stare at the screen, watching others inhabit roles that might have been theirs? But before we explore these vanished icons, we should understand why the greatest actor of his generation decided that the final act of his extraordinary career would be written far from the cameras that made him famous.
If everyone had rather she be Beaufort's mistress than some decent fellow's wife, you've all gone about it perfectly.
Daniel Day-Lewis, the master actor who gave his final performance. When the credits rolled on Phantom Thread in 2017, few suspected they were watching Daniel Day-Lewis's final performance. Yet the man widely considered the greatest actor of his generation, perhaps of any generation, had quietly decided that his extraordinary 3-decade journey through cinema had reached its end. Day-Lewis didn't just act in roles, he disappeared into them completely, explained a director who worked with him in the 1990s. The level of commitment he brought to each character was unlike anything I've witnessed. He didn't portray people, he became them. This legendary commitment produced some of cinema's most unforgettable performances. The physically disabled artist Christy Brown in My Left Foot, the ruthless oil tycoon Daniel Plainview in There Will Be Blood, and the iconic American president in Lincoln. Each role showcased his remarkable ability to transform himself so completely that the actor himself seemed to vanish. Working with Daniel wasn't like working with other actors, remembered a costume designer from Lincoln. He wouldn't respond if you called him by his real name during production. He maintained his character's accent and posture even when cameras weren't rolling. It wasn't an affectation. It was the only way he knew how to reach the truth. This extraordinary method took a tremendous toll. For My Left Foot, he remained in a wheelchair throughout production. For The Boxer, he trained for nearly 3 years until professional fighters couldn't distinguish him from one of their own. For Lincoln, he spent months inhabiting the president's distinctive speech patterns until they became second nature. The process became increasingly overwhelming, revealed someone close to the actor. Each role demanded more than the last. Each character took longer to leave his system when filming ended. After Lincoln, he was unsure if he could go through that level of psychological immersion again. When Day-Lewis announced his retirement in June 2017, the film world reacted with shock. At 60, with his powers undiminished and his position at the pinnacle of his profession unchallenged, his departure seemed premature, especially for an actor who had taken extended breaks before. This was different, insisted a colleague. His previous hiatuses were regenerative, time to decompress between intense roles. This was a final decision. He had given everything he had to give to this art form. There was nothing left. Since his retirement, Day-Lewis has retreated to his home in rural Ireland, where he reportedly pursues woodworking and painting, creative outlets that don't require the psychological extremes of his acting career. He has been photographed only rarely, engaged in everyday activities far removed from the Hollywood spotlight. The remarkable thing about Daniel's retirement is its completeness, observed a film historian. There have been no one last roles, no commercial appearances, no comeback rumors. When he said he was finished, he meant it absolutely. What makes Day-Lewis's departure particularly significant is the quality of his final performance. As fashion designer Reynolds Woodcock in Phantom Thread, he delivered work of characteristic brilliance, leaving at the absolute height of his powers rather than during a career decline. He gave his final performance knowing it was his last, noted a critic. It's the rarest of Hollywood endings, perfectly timed, completely on his terms, with nothing left to prove.
I feel like it's the best thing that it is. I don't feel like it. I know it's the best thing I've ever done in my life.
Cameron Diaz, the superstar who found peace in obscurity. At the height of her fame, Cameron Diaz was Hollywood's golden girl, a box office powerhouse whose films grossed over $7 billion worldwide. Her unique combination of bombshell beauty and genuine comic talent made her equally credible in action blockbusters, raunchy comedies, and dramatic roles. Then, without warning or explanation, she simply stopped. Cameron's exit was so subtle that most people didn't notice it happening, recalled a studio executive who had worked with her on multiple projects. There was no retirement announcement, no farewell tour. After Annie wrapped in 2014, she just declined everything. Every script, every offer, no matter how spectacular, received the same polite but firm no. What made Diaz's departure particularly surprising was its timing. Unlike actors who exit during career downturns, she walked away when she was still commanding top billing and 8-figure paydays. Her last film was a major studio production, hardly the fading twilight many stars experience before retirement. Cameron left from a position of absolute power, emphasized her former agent. The day after she decided to step away, she had 5 studio offers on the table, all for leading roles with director approval and back-end points. She could have worked constantly for another decade at her peak, quote. Initially, industry insiders assumed Diaz was simply taking a break, but as months turned into years with no sign of a return, it became clear that her departure might be permanent. In the few interviews she's given since stepping away, Diaz has described her decision in terms of personal peace rather than dissatisfaction with Hollywood itself. I just realized I had become responsible for so many things that had nothing to do with me, she told a wellness podcast in 2020. My entire life was scheduled in 5-minute increments. I needed to take back ownership of my time and energy. This search for personal peace coincided with major life changes. After leaving acting, Diaz married musician Benji Madden in 2015 and welcomed a daughter in December 2019. These transitions provided a new focus outside the relentless demands of stardom. What's fascinating about Cameron's case is how completely she's embraced her new life, observed a celebrity psychologist. Unlike some who leave acting but maintain careers in producing or directing, she made a clean break with the entire industry. She didn't want a different position in the same world, she wanted a completely different world. Once a fixture on red carpets and magazine covers, she has become an almost spectral presence in public life, rarely photographed and engaging in minimal public appearances or social media activity. While Diaz has occasionally hinted at a potential return under the right circumstances, these comments have been tentative. In the meantime, she has focused on other ventures, including a line of clean wines and wellness-focused books, projects that can be managed on her own schedule. What Cameron found was that she didn't miss it, said a friend. She discovered something many successful people never learn, that you can walk away from what everyone else considers the pinnacle and find greater happiness in simplicity.
Oh, I suppose your wife is... Oh.
Bridget Fonda, Hollywood royalty who chose anonymity. As the daughter of Peter Fonda, niece of Jane Fonda, and granddaughter of Henry Fonda, Bridget Fonda was born into acting royalty, the closest thing America has to an aristocratic dynasty of performers. Her ethereal beauty and undeniable talent quickly established her as more than just a famous name, earning critical acclaim in films like Single White Female, Point of No Return, and Jackie Brown. Then, at the peak of her rising fame, she simply vanished from Hollywood without explanation or farewell. Bridget's disappearance was particularly striking because it happened right when her career was accelerating, explained a casting director who worked with her in the 1990s. She had successfully navigated the transition from ingenue to serious actress and was getting her pick of substantial roles. Most performers spend their entire careers trying to reach that position. She attained it and walked away. Fonda's exit wasn't preceded by career disappointments or public struggles. Her final film role in the 2002 TV movie Snow Queen came amid a steady stream of work. There was no scandal, no public breakdown, no apparent catalyst for such a complete withdrawal from public life. What made Bridget's case unusual was the totality of her departure, observed a talent agent. Most actors who step away maintain some connection to the industry. Bridget didn't just leave acting, she left the entire ecosystem of Hollywood. It was as if she decided to erase that entire identity. The timing of her exit coincided with significant personal changes. In 2003, she married renowned composer Danny Elfman, and the couple welcomed a son in 2005. These life transitions appeared to solidify Fonda's commitment to privacy, providing a new focus outside the demands of an acting career. Bridget made the most radical choice possible for someone from her background, noted a cultural historian. Remember, she comes from a family where acting wasn't just a career. It was the family legacy, a birthright stretching back generations. Walking away represented a profound break with everything she had been raised to value. This break extended beyond career to include a complete withdrawal from public visibility. Unlike retired actors who still attend industry events, Fonda retreated into such thorough privacy that she was not photographed publicly for nearly 20 years after her retirement. When photos of Fonda finally emerged in January 2022, they created a minor sensation precisely because of this extended absence. The images, showing her running errands in Los Angeles, revealed a woman who appeared to have embraced aging naturally without the cosmetic interventions common among former actresses. Those photos told a powerful story without a single word, reflected a media analyst. Here was a woman who had once been marketed as one of the most beautiful actresses of her generation, now moving through the world without any apparent concern for maintaining that image. It was a complete rejection of Hollywood's value system. Friends of Fonda have indicated that her retreat from public life represents a genuine desire for normalcy rather than any traumatic experience with fame. Unlike stars who leave the spotlight due to industry disillusionment, Fonda appears to have made a clear-eyed choice to prioritize family and privacy over continued recognition. Bridget simply decided she didn't need or want to be famous, stated a longtime family friend. She had experienced that life from birth, seen its effects on 3 generations of her family, and made the assessment that the costs outweighed the benefits.
Tell us about yourself. Who are you? Harry Sanborn.
Jack Nicholson, the Hollywood legend who left without saying goodbye. Few actors have defined American cinema as completely as Jack Nicholson. With his iconic eyebrows, devilish grin, and unparalleled ability to oscillate between charm and menace, Nicholson created some of film history's most unforgettable characters across 6 decades of boundary-pushing performances. Then, without announcement or explanation, one of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood history simply disappeared from screens worldwide. Jack's exit was particularly poignant because there was no declared endpoint, explained a director who worked with him multiple times. Most legendary actors get a final role, a last hurrah that serves as a capstone. Jack just faded away. His last film, the forgettable romantic comedy How Do You Know in 2010, certainly wasn't planned as a farewell performance, but somehow it became one. Unlike many retired stars, Nicholson never officially announced his departure. For several years after his last on-screen appearance, his name continued to circulate around potential projects, including a proposed remake of the German film Toni Erdmann. But these projects never materialized, and his absence gradually transformed from temporary hiatus to apparent retirement. What makes Jack's situation complex is that his withdrawal appears to have both voluntary and involuntary elements, noted a longtime friend of the actor. On one hand, he had earned the right to step back after an unparalleled career. On the other, there have been persistent rumors about memory issues making it increasingly difficult for him to perform at the level he demanded of himself. These rumors, neither confirmed nor denied by Nicholson himself, suggest that the actor's legendary commitment to excellence may have influenced his decision to step away rather than deliver performances that didn't meet his own standards. Jack always said he would never embarrass himself on screen, recalled a producer who worked with him in the 2000s. He was acutely aware of his legacy. If he felt he could no longer deliver the Jack Nicholson experience audiences expected, he would have preferred to disappear rather than diminish that body of work. What makes Nicholson's absence particularly notable is how it contrasts with his former public persona. For decades, he was the ultimate Hollywood character, courtside at Lakers games, surrounded by beautiful women, living the high life with unabashed pleasure. His retreat represents a significant shift for a man who once seemed to embody celebrity itself. Though rarely seen in public since his retirement, Nicholson reportedly leads a quiet life in his longtime Mulholland Drive home, surrounded by his extensive art collection and visited by close friends and family. His rare public appearances, primarily at Lakers games or occasional award shows, have become noteworthy events precisely because of their scarcity. Jack's withdrawal has a particular melancholy because it represents the end of an era in Hollywood, reflected a film historian. He was perhaps the last of the truly untamed movie stars, someone who lived by his own rules both on and off screen. There was no sanitized social media presence, no carefully curated public image. He was gloriously, unapologetically himself. As Nicholson approaches 15 years away from the screen that made him an icon, his undeclared retirement stands as both a personal choice and a broader cultural transition. The final bow of a type of movie stardom we may never see again.
So why am I here?
I'm just a huge fan.
Oh, stop it. Come on.
Rick Moranis, the comedy star who chose fatherhood over fame. In the 1980s and early 1990s, Rick Moranis was everywhere. The bespectacled heart of beloved films like Ghostbusters, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Spaceballs, and Little Shop of Horrors. His distinctive blend of nervous energy and genuine warmth made him one of the most recognizable comedy stars of his generation. Then, at the height of his fame and commercial power, he disappeared completely from Hollywood, making a choice so unusual in the entertainment industry that it has become legendary in itself. Rick's story is unlike any other in modern Hollywood, explained a producer who worked with him in the early 1990s. Most career pauses happen because the industry decides it's time. The roles dry up. The phone stops ringing. Rick walked away when every studio in town wanted him for their next comedy. He was at the absolute peak of his earning potential. The catalyst for Moranis' departure was devastating personal tragedy. In 1991, his wife, costume designer Ann Belsky, died of breast cancer, leaving Moranis as the single father of their 2 young children. Faced with the impossible balance between a Hollywood career and the needs of his newly motherless children, Moranis made an extraordinary choice. He walked away from stardom entirely to focus on raising his kids. Rick's decision wasn't just unusual, it was almost unheard of in Hollywood, especially for a male star at that time, observed a casting director. The industry standard was to hire more nannies and keep the career machine running. The idea of completely stepping away at the height of success to be a full-time parent was viewed as career destruction. Initially, Moranis framed his departure as a hiatus rather than retirement, but as years passed with no return to the screen, it became clear that his decision represented a more permanent shift in priorities. What began as a temporary break evolved into a complete life transformation. What's remarkable about Rick's case is that it was a clean break, noted a former colleague who stayed in touch with Moranis. He didn't try to maintain one foot in the industry through producing or directing. He didn't take the occasional role to keep his name out there. He completely walked away to focus exclusively on being present for his children during their formative years. This complete commitment extended to Moranis' physical presence as well. Once a fixture in entertainment media, he effectively disappeared from public view, rarely photographed and engaging in almost no interviews or public appearances for decades. In the rare instances when Moranis has discussed his decision, he has expressed zero regrets about choosing family over fame. "I have absolutely no regrets whatsoever," he told USA Today in a 2005 interview. "My life is wonderful." After nearly 2 decades of complete absence, Moranis surprised fans by appearing in a 2020 commercial alongside Ryan Reynolds, a brief return that sparked speculation about a possible comeback. While he has been attached to a Honey, I Shrunk the Kids sequel, his overall stance appears unchanged. Family first, with potential work a distant secondary consideration. Rick represents something truly rare in Hollywood, someone who recognized that success and fame are hollow without the fundamental human connections that give life meaning, reflected a former co-star. He had the courage to walk away from what millions desperately want because he understood what was truly important. Phoebe Cates, the 80s dream girl who vanished. For a generation of moviegoers who came of age in the 1980s, Phoebe Cates represented the ultimate dream girl, the unforgettable vision emerging from the pool in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the spunky heroine of Gremlins, the quintessential cool girl in Drop Dead Fred. Then, at the height of her fame and beauty, she simply disappeared from screens, walking away from Hollywood without fanfare or explanation. Phoebe's exit was particularly notable because it happened when she was still very much in demand, explained a casting director who worked during Cates's heyday. She wasn't aging out of ingenue roles yet. She wasn't experiencing a dry spell. She walked away when most actresses would have been desperately hanging on to that level of recognition and desire. Kate's last significant film role came in the 1994 comedy Princess Caraboo, though she made a brief appearance in the 2001 film The Anniversary Party as a favor to her best friend, Jennifer Jason Leigh. This marked more of an exception than a return to acting. Her exit coincided with her marriage to actor Kevin Kline in 1989 and the subsequent birth of their 2 children, life changes that appeared to shift her priorities away from the demands of an acting career. What made Phoebe's case interesting is that she was married to someone who continued a very successful acting career, noted an industry observer. She wasn't leaving Hollywood entirely. She was still connected to the industry through her husband. She just decided that she personally no longer wanted to be on camera. Unlike some retired actors who maintain public profiles through charity work or social media, Kate's retreated almost completely from public view. Her rare appearances, usually accompanying Kline to premieres or award ceremonies, became notable precisely because of their scarcity. Instead of pursuing fame, Kate's channeled her energy into entrepreneurship, opening a boutique called Blue Tree in New York City in 2005. The upscale shop, featuring eclectic clothing and gift items, provided a creative outlet that didn't require the public exposure of an acting career. Phoebe made a choice that few beautiful actresses have the courage to make, observed a former colleague. She walked away before Hollywood had a chance to diminish her in any way. She remains frozen in the public imagination at her most vibrant and beautiful, an icon who never had to experience the industry's often cruel treatment of aging women. For fans who grew up with her films, Kate's disappearance created a particular kind of cultural nostalgia. She remains forever the dream girl emerging from that pool, untouched by the passage of time or the diminishing returns of a fading career. There's something almost mythological about the way Phoebe left, reflected a cultural critic who has written about iconic movie moments. She gave Gen X some of its most formative cinematic fantasies, then disappeared completely. She exists now more as a memory than as a person, a celluloid dream that was never compromised by reality. After more than 25 years away from the profession that made her famous, Kate's quiet life in New York with her family represents one of Hollywood's most complete and enduring exits. A woman who recognized the ephemeral nature of fame and beauty and chose to step away while both were still firmly in her possession.
So, let me understand this, because maybe it's me, I'm a little fucked up, maybe. But I'm funny how? I mean, funny like I'm a clown, I amuse you?
Joe Pesci, the reluctant legend. Few actors have created more memorable screen moments than Joe Pesci. His explosive energy and unpredictable intensity turned supporting roles into scene-stealing tour de forces in classics like Goodfellas, Casino, Raging Bull, and Home Alone. His ability to pivot between terrifying violence and perfect comedy timing made him one of cinema's most distinctive performers. Then, with little warning or explanation, he simply walked away. Joe always had a love-hate relationship with acting and fame, explained a director who worked with Pesci in the 1990s. He came to Hollywood later than most. He was already in his 30s when he got his break in Raging Bull. He had lived a whole life outside the industry, working as a musician and in restaurants. That gave him a perspective most actors lack. He knew fame wasn't everything. After his Oscar-winning performance in Goodfellas, 1990, Pesci's career reached new heights with a string of high-profile roles throughout the decade. But by the early 2000s, his screen appearances became increasingly rare, culminating in what appeared to be retirement after a small role in The Good Shepherd, 2006. Joe just stopped finding joy in the process, revealed a longtime friend. He'd accomplished everything: the Oscar, the iconic roles, the financial success, and he'd reached an age where the physical demands of his intense performance style were taking a greater toll. He asked himself, "Why am I still doing this?" and couldn't find a compelling answer. Unlike some retired actors who maintain public profiles, Pesci retreated to a quiet life in New Jersey, reportedly enjoying golf, music, and the company of old friends, far from the Hollywood spotlight. His rare public appearances became noteworthy precisely because of their scarcity. What makes Joe's case interesting is that he walked away without feeling the need to make a formal announcement, observed a casting director familiar with Pesci's career. No farewell tour, no retirement press release. He just stopped saying yes to roles unless something truly exceptional came along. That exceptional opportunity arrived in 2019 when Martin Scorsese persuaded Pesci to emerge from retirement for The Irishman, reuniting him with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino in what many considered a late-career masterpiece. Pesci's performance as crime boss Russell Bufalino, quiet, measured, and chillingly restrained, represented a stark contrast to the explosive characters that had defined his earlier work. Joe's return for The Irishman was fascinating because he gave a performance so different from what made him famous, noted a film critic. It was as if he was saying, "I could have been doing this kind of subtle, nuanced work all along, but you all wanted the human dynamite." It felt like both a gift to audiences and a gentle rebuke to an industry that had typecast him. Following this brief return, Pesci retreated once again to his private life, making it clear that The Irishman represented an exception rather than a comeback. In rare comments about his selective approach to roles, he has suggested that he's only interested in projects worth the silence, opportunities compelling enough to justify breaking his peaceful retirement. Joe found something most actors never discover, that there can be satisfaction and meaning in walking away, reflected a former co-star. He doesn't need the adoration, the awards, or even the creative fulfillment anymore. He's reached a place where silence and simplicity have more value to him than applause.
Yeah, it's a really bad cut.
Yeah, well, just think if I got her the ring she really wanted.
Renee Zellweger, the star who disappeared, then returned. In the early 2000s, Renee Zellweger was Hollywood royalty, an Oscar winner for Cold Mountain, the beloved star of the Bridget Jones franchise, and a critical darling with 3 Academy Award nominations before the age of 35. Her distinctive look, unmistakable speaking style, and remarkable range made her one of the most recognizable actresses of her generation. Then, without formal announcement, she simply vanished from screens and red carpets for 6 years, a disappearance so complete that it spawned countless "whatever happened to" articles and speculation. Renee's hiatus was particularly striking because it happened at the absolute peak of her professional powers, explained a producer who had worked with Zellweger. She wasn't experiencing a career downturn or a lack of opportunities. She walked away right after being nominated for another Oscar for Cinderella Man. It was as if she closed the door at the height of the party. Her last appearance before her extended break came in the forgettable 2010 film My Own Love Song. Then, silence. No new projects, minimal public appearances, a complete retreat from the machinery of Hollywood stardom that had defined her life for over a decade. What made Renee's case unusual was that she disappeared not just from screens, but from public consciousness almost entirely, noted a celebrity journalist. Most stars who step back still maintain some visibility. Charity events, fashion shows, the occasional interview. Renee went completely dark. No social media presence, no carefully orchestrated paparazzi moments, no lifestyle brand launches. She just wasn't there anymore. When Zellweger finally returned to the public eye in 2016, her appearance at Ella's Women in Hollywood Awards sparked a frenzy of cruel speculation about whether she had undergone plastic surgery, a harsh reminder of the scrutiny that may have contributed to her desire to step away in the first place. In the few interviews she's given about her absence, Zellweger has emphasized the need for personal recalibration and growth outside the distorting bubble of fame. "I was fatigued and wasn't taking the time I needed to recover between projects," she told British Vogue. "I was going from one to the next without taking the time to recalibrate, to sit still and look around me." Her return to acting, highlighted by her Oscar-winning portrayal of Judy Garland in 2019's Judy, demonstrated that her skills had only deepened during her time away. Yet even after this triumphant comeback, Zellweger has maintained a selective, measured approach to both roles and public exposure. What's fascinating about Renee's journey is that she seems to have learned something fundamental during her hiatus, observed a Hollywood psychologist who has worked with many celebrities navigating fame. She found that she could walk away and the world didn't end. That knowledge gives her a freedom that few actors possess, the genuine option to say no without fear. While Zellweger has returned to acting, her approach suggests a hard-won wisdom about the toxic aspects of fame and the importance of maintaining personal boundaries in an industry that constantly pushes against them. Renee represents a different model of celebrity, reflected a casting director. Not permanent retirement, but strategic engagement, working when and how she chooses, then disappearing back into private life without explanation or apology. It's a kind of freedom that requires both financial security and genuine self-knowledge.
I don't know we had a meeting scheduled today, sport.
I didn't either. I think we should talk, Gordon.
Michael Douglas, Hollywood royalty's quiet exit. For half a century, Michael Douglas defined Hollywood's success across multiple incarnations. The TV star who broke free from his famous father's shadow, the Oscar-winning producer of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, the definitive leading man of sexually charged thrillers like Fatal Attraction and Basic Instinct, and the prestige actor of critically acclaimed dramas. Now, at 80, Douglas appears to have quietly closed the book on one of the most successful and varied careers in entertainment history. Not with a grand farewell, but with a simple fading away from the profession that made him an icon. Michael's departure has been so gradual that many people haven't even noticed it happening, observed a producer who worked with Douglas in the 2000s. There was no retirement announcement, no farewell role, no victory lap of retrospective interviews. He just gradually stopped taking new projects after 2022. In a 2025 interview, one of his few public comments addressing his professional status, Douglas acknowledged that he has no real intentions of returning to acting, describing his time away as a purposeful break rather than an abrupt exit. While leaving the door theoretically open to something special, the tone and substance of his comments suggested a man who has made peace with the end of his time on screen. What makes Douglas's quiet exit particularly notable is how it contrasts with his father's approach. Kirk Douglas worked well into his 80s, taking his final film role at 87. Many expected Michael to follow a similar path, especially given his continued vitality and the industry's increasing opportunities for older actors. Michael watched his father hold on perhaps longer than he should have, explained someone close to the Douglas family. I think he learned from that experience and decided he wanted to leave on his own terms, while still at full strength, rather than waiting until health or diminishing offers forced his hand. Douglas's final acting projects, including the acclaimed Netflix series The Kominsky Method, which earned him a Golden Globe, allowed him to explore the challenges of aging in Hollywood with nuance and humor, providing a meta-commentary on his own journey through the industry. There's something appropriate about Michael's final major role being a character wrestling with the indignities of aging in an industry obsessed with youth, noted a television critic. It allowed him to process his own relationship with Hollywood while delivering some of the most emotionally resonant work of his career. Unlike some retired actors who vanish entirely from public life, Douglas continues to be seen occasionally at industry events, often supporting his wife Catherine Zeta-Jones or accepting lifetime achievement honors that recognize his extraordinary career. These appearances, however, have become increasingly rare as he focuses on family and personal interests. Michael has reached a stage of life where legacy matters more than adding another credit to the resume, reflected a longtime colleague. He has nothing left to prove, not to the industry, not to his famous father's memory, not to himself. He's earned the right to step away without explanation or fanfare. As one of the last great movie stars of a particular Hollywood era, Douglas's quiet exit represents not just an individual career choice, but the closing of a chapter in entertainment history, a transition from the star-driven studio vehicles he mastered to an industry increasingly focused on franchises over individual performers. Michael's career spanned nearly every phase of modern Hollywood, concluded a film historian. From the last gasp of the studio system through the artistic renaissance of the 70s, the high-concept blockbusters of the 80s and 90s, and into the streaming era. There aren't many careers with that kind of scope left. His retirement, however quiet, marks the end of something significant in American cinema.